Los Angeles, and I'm also a handbag designer and have my own handbag line called Solas Fashion, which I launched online, and that's how we actually raised our funding to expand into stores. And I've also made a movie off of when they first started Kickstarter. I was one of the original people that was part of that to have my movie get funded. So I've used the internet a lot, and I've found it wonderful, and it's always evolving. So I hope to bring information to you guys about what I did and hear your questions.
My name is Mike. I'm a drummer. I have several websites that I own. Some of them make what we call passive income, where I have different products that are just sold while I sleep, and I just make money. I know it sounds strange, like some kind of late night infomercial. And I also have sold a lot of drums and stuff online, and I've sold a lot of things called info products like ebooks and stuff like that. So I have a lot of knowledge around that.
I'm Sally Field Mullan. I'm a faculty member at the College of DuPage, a two-year college in Glen Ellen right here. I have put together a 2-year program for game development. So I teach students how to design and how to create computer games. Obviously, how many of you play Angry Birds? 1 million or 1 billion downloads, $99 a pop. Yeah, you can make a lot of money with gaming online.
Well, I can tell you my first website, I didn't design it clean. and even though I had a great product, and when people got to the site, because I was all excited and I was working with a friend and we had lots of ideas, and so we were more focused on how pretty and cool and all these great things that were going to be on the site than we were selling the product. And I found that I was figuring that things were falling off when people went to the site. Now, when I redesigned my site, made it clean and very specific what my product was, what you're trying to find, we saw that our sales raised. So I absolutely believe, clean across the board. What are you trying to sell? And as well as, I think one of the other mistakes I made was I didn't immediately have some sort of way of knowing how people were responding to my product, like doing my own marketing, within myself. So when we changed it and had questionnaires when people bought the product, like, where'd you hear about us? Did you hear about us on Google? Did you hear about us on Facebook? Did you, these are really important things as you grow that you don't think about when you're first starting out, because you're like, oh, I'm just trying to sell something. But once you start selling, they're really important ways to find how to grow your business and also how your site is functioning. You like that, Mike?
I like that.
Good.
For me, I study something called persuasion architecture, and that's a fairly new term. It's the art of actually getting people to buy online. And if I'm a website, I don't have like a PowerPoint or anything, but I've learned, one of the things I learned in that is that you have to plan your web page around different personality types. So for instance, a type A person really knows what they want when they want it, so you want to have stuff for them at the top, like 2 or 3 choices for whatever you're selling. Then there's the person who doesn't trust you, right? And on this column over here, if on the web page, you want to have testimonials and how long you've been in business and awards you've received. And right up here, this is the magic spot to put the big buy now button or add to cart. We see that right on Amazon.com. But then there are people that like to sit and just scroll around and look at who you are and see facts. You want stuff for them at the bottom of the page. So these are all things you want to think about when you're designing a site to persuade people to buy.
I go from more the academic side. If you want to build your own website, there are a number of websites that you can go to. And I wish I had them off the top of my head. I have business cards, so if anyone's interested, you can email me. But you can go to websites to actually build a website, particularly for a product or whatever. Then there's also concept of go to a college and find the web design department and find out if they have students that are willing to get their name up there as being the webmaster. They'll design a website for you. Now, there's also the concept, though, you're trying to sell a product on it, so you need to make sure that whoever is doing the website for you also understands the e-commerce side of it. Because are you going to have money paid through PayPal, or are you going to take credit cards, or how? And that's a whole nother subset of trying to sell something on the website. So first of all, you can find those kinds of sites that will, in fact, allow you to build a site that will also have that e-commerce already in there for you. So how do you get your website noticed? YouTube. Everybody loves YouTube. So you do either, what do you call, I call them trailers in gaming. What you do is you do what is called a cinematic of your game, like a gameplay, so that people can, it's essentially a movie of your game being played. Or you can do a movie of your art, your product, or whatever. You drumming. I got to talk to you about drumming.
Oh.
I used to drum too.
Oh, okay.
I always thought of myself as a percussionist, even though it was 5th grade when I started drumming. Anyway, sorry, I just had to get that in because once a drummer, always a drummer. Always, and I'm 64 now, so it's been quite a while. Sorry. Anyway, but YouTube is wonderful. I mean, come on, you see all these great hits, and how do you get people to go to YouTube? Facebook. And every one of your friends. So you use these social networking, Twitter, everybody, hey, I've got this wonderful site up on YouTube so that they can see your product or see what you're doing. That takes them back to, on YouTube, you can also have your link back to your website. So there's, this is wonderful trail that you have to create because you have to get noticed.
And to building off of that, you want the number one way to raise your sales is to be the number one hit on Google for what you're trying to do. And the way to do that nowadays, with there's so many bloggers out there and there's so many people doing reviews, is to really take the time and email different bloggers that you might follow that are in the same kind of industry that you're trying to get into, and get people to write about you. Because once we did that with our handbags, our goal was we took a Google ad to start, and then once we started getting more and more hits, I started reaching out to every media outlet I could to get people to write about me. So if you Google right now, light up handbag, my name is in the top, probably the first one. But that was because my husband and I sat there and we emailed each one of these people online that were writing. And nowadays, people are kind of lazy, or they hire a PR company and they don't want to do it themselves. You have a power to reach out to every blogger, even if they only have a couple hundred people following their blog. If you get every blogger to write about what you're doing, you're going to start seeing yourself rise on Google. And when someone's thinking about what they want to get from you, they'll Google and they'll be like, oh, here's her site. I never heard about that. Here's his site. So it's a really easy, cheap, and efficient way. And once we started doing that with Google ads too, you can pick and choose, like, okay, for 30 days, I'm going to spend X amount of dollars to raise my hits up, and then I'm going to get rid of it and rely on the press. So there's so many ways to kind of get yourself noticed when you first start. That's really in your control. I'm a big I believe in doing it yourself. I spent money in the beginning, and it was money lost by trying to get other people to help me to be recognized. And when I did it myself, that's when I actually saw my sales rise. So
I agree with that one. And I want to add to something she said before about getting engagement happening on your website. Whatever kind of site you have, you want to be able to get testimonials and reviews. And she talked about a wonderful thing about almost like a survey type function, just to get feedback from clients. And what we call that is social proof. We do it all the time when we go to Amazon.com, and we don't buy a product because of a review or something.
Yeah. We do one.
Another way for, how many artists do we have in here? Okay.
Like visual artists.
Visual artists particularly, or whatever, okay. One way that, particularly in gaming, most of you know about going to apps and being able to download games for 99 cents a pop. Well, another way to do this is what is called free to play. Now, a computer game, just to make sure you understand this and why I love gaming, because it is truly cross-discipline. You have a computer programmer using art assets, music assets, writing assets, and all kinds of different assets by artists and other fine artists or musicians and stuff. So if you can get a group together to create for artists, we've discovered that we have an artist in one of our groups that was so good that we created a quick game in a program called Game Maker to accent his art more than, but the gameplay had to be good, of course, so we had good game designers. We put this up onto an app store for free to play. So what you do then is they download, and the more that you have a free to play game and more people download it, it goes higher and higher onto the hits for when you go to the game store. And therefore they got more and more notice. Then when people realize that, then they can go, you can get them into, one of the things you can do inside the game, ironically enough, is called free to play. and you pay for enhancements. And so you start making money through a game for after they download the game and play the first several levels free. Then if they want to also expand it, then you start charging them to be able to go into different rooms and to different levels, and that's another way to make money on the, in this way you're showcasing music and you're showcasing art.
And I'm sorry,
so-
I think that's really interesting too. Also, she hit on is, you know, just how you have to spend money to make money, you got to be willing to do things for free to get people to notice what you're
Yeah.
doing, whatever it is. Whether you're making I'm a filmmaker too, and you know, in order to get people to recognize your product, you got to find unique ways that make sense to you to give it out there for free. And that's a great example for the game world or art, because you're getting people to use your product the way you want, as opposed to just giving stuff away and you have no idea that it's going to the right audience. It's when you give stuff away, make sure it's going to the audience that's going to talk about you online, that's going to talk about you on Twitter, and it's going to help you with what you're doing. I think that freebies are a big part of getting recognition. I have a question. Are there any filmmakers in the audience here? And now, have you guys, or is there anybody else who's looking into crowdfunding for their project to try to raise money to do something? Has anyone done that yet? There's a lot of, I know that's on the list, kind of building off of that. There's a lot of sites right now that you can get people to donate money, in your community to get your project done. We did ours on Kickstarter, but we did it when Kickstarter was just starting. I read about them in the New York Times, and they were looking for 100 artists or 100, filmmakers to do it, and they were going to not charge you. So we did it. They didn't take any money from us, so we didn't get a 5% taken out. Our friends and family raised the starter money for me to make my documentary. We knew we needed $5,000 just to start, and then we could build from there. And we raised the money within 2 weeks by making a video, and everyone was excited because they felt like they were part of something. Because of that built-in audience, when I went to screen my movie, every time I went to a city that someone had donated, my theater was packed. So even though not everyone donated, they were excited to tell their friends and family I was part of this project. And I donated $25. Awesome. I donated $100. So I actually premiered in Naperville, and we had people from high school that I hadn't seen in years had heard about the project online. So Kickstarter now is charging a big percentage of what you raise your money. There are a million sites like it. No one knows the difference when you're sending it out. I would look for these kind of sites, because when you involve people in your community with what you're doing, whether it's art or film or anything, they feel like they now are invested in it, and everybody wants to be an artist at heart. Everybody wants to be a performer. Everybody wants to live, that life that we're taking a chance to live. So if you can make them feel like they're part of it, and then they're going to tell their friends, it's word of mouth. You'll be really surprised if it's your art opening, if it's a game, whatever it is, how you'll triple the amount of people who are interested in what you're doing right off the bat. So I just wanted to throw that in there because it's the same sort of. Yeah. So.
That's really cool.
Thanks, Mike.
How they came to the event.
Actually, we had 200 people, over 200 people in Chicago, and all because of word of mouth, because of this Kickstarter. It was great. It just went on Facebook and everything. They really were excited about it. And the same thing with LA. We had over 300 people, just the same thing, that showed up, and they were standing room only because of Kickstarter. So it was really great.
Can I add to that? There's a site. This whole crowdfunding and crowdsourcing thing is a thing we're kind of on now. But if you want I might be getting a T-shirt design, because I decided I want to have me a T-shirt to sell.
All right.
I don't know what it's gonna. Might be my face. I don't know. Something.
I'll wear it.
Might be. Will you wear my T-shirt if I had a T-shirt? Okay.
With your face on it only.
You all promise. So you can go to this site called 99 Designs.
You're right.
And what you do at 99 Designs, you pay $200 or $300, and I could say, look, I want a T-shirt with my face and I don't know, make it like a cartoon, me laughing, right? And I'll get 70 graphic artists who have to put together a design within a week for me. And I can comment on one person's design, everyone else sees it, and they all edit it, and I get to pick the best one. And the winner by the end of 7 days gets the money, but you get professional design done in a really cool way, and you get 70 designers working on things for you. So that's an option to use when you're trying to design a site, design a T-shirt, design a logo, and have it real professional.
And publicity stuff too. Because, that's a great idea.
Yeah, rather than have your friend who does graphic design do it. We know how that works.
One of the things that I also, touching on what you just said, was you want to sell your product, you want to sell your art, you want to sell, and you want to make a main. I come from and doing a lot of work with helping women set up businesses in the mid-'80s into the 90s. And one of the things that I really like to support is small businesses using small businesses. It is a community support of, so go to the graphic designers, go to the web designers that you may have to pay for it, but if you're helping also a small business do their thing, then they're gonna help you do your thing. So I think of this as a community of, particularly in small businesses. So hopefully I know it's nice to try to get free things and freebies, but you also get what you pay for sometimes, like you said, your friend, can they really do it or not? So if you can, and there are good websites to find people to create websites for you. Like I said, there are websites that can do the whole thing for you, and there is some fee involved with this. But again, if you're trying to start out in your business, then hopefully you'll support other small business people.
And joining those clubs and stuff, because I did that like in LA. I did different, like Step Up is a kind of a women's organization, and there's always small business, like socials and things like that. There are a lot of people out there that are trying to do just what you're trying to do, and sometimes going to like a cocktail hour for one of those, you'll meet somebody who'll be like, oh, I'm trying to do this, and you're trying to do that, and you're meeting business-like people who are creative, so their goal is the same as yours, so when you're swapping, freebies with each other that you're gonna get something back, and I think that's really important. You gotta hang with the group that you wanna be. You can't hang with people who are trying to, ride your coattails or trying to, just be part of it. You gotta, if you wanna be in a certain industry, just make sure that you're hanging out in that industry in any way you can. And I guarantee, in LA, there's a restaurant that at happy hour, I know that anybody who's doing films and TV shows sits at this happy hour. When I found that out, I would just sit up there, even though at the time I couldn't really afford half the stuff that's at this bar. I would sit there because if I'm there and I'd listen. And I'd listen to what they were talking about, and I would hear, oh, the president of, this network's over there doing this. And eventually, I saw somebody that looked a little like my age, sitting up there, and we started talking. And I've made connections just by putting myself in the place where I know what the industry is doing that, I want to be in. So that's a big way to meet people that you can kind of swap, and give, ideas with each other and make sure that you're not, like you said, using a friend of a friend who doesn't really have any interest in seeing you do well. It's really kind of like great minds think alike. I feel like we're talking a lot. Do you guys have any questions you kind of want to start out on? You want to start here? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Now, when you guys developed your websites, did you use any like third party, like one turnkey kind of web designers? Because there's one, for example, Stores Online, where you can get you get your images, they take care of the e-commerce, or did you kind of have somebody design your website and then you dealt with the e-commerce separately? How did you originally create your websites?
I did it separately just because I had a community of people that were really interested. That there was a girl who just got out of college. She really wanted for her resume, so she helped together. We designed our site, and then my husband and I kind of taught ourselves about the e-commerce part because we kind of decided early on who was going to take on the business aspect and the creative. But I have designed other websites for other companies since then, and we have used, the one-stop shops, because for that company it makes more sense that they don't want to be dealing with two separate entities. I think it really has to do with where do you see yourself growing. We knew with our handbags that we were starting out with selling our stuff online to grow our business, and then we were going to go, boutiques, and at one point we had like 350 boutiques. So for us, it just made more sense because the volume we were trying to get to have them separated and what we needed as far as traffic. So it's kind of like when you say the amount of, stuff you have coming in and out. Or you could start out one way to save money and just know as you grow that you might have to switch, to a Volusion or, another type of e-commerce that would kind of help you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with everything Kara said. I use WordPress.
I like the idea of that.
It's pretty much free. If you have your own site, you can get it within the site, the domain that you choose, and the New York Times is run on WordPress, and it's so friendly to search engines, and I say once you learn how to use it, it's easier than Microsoft Word. Really is, like a 10-year-old can use it, allows you to update your site quick, and this goes back to what Kara was saying about paying someone. You can learn how to do it, and you can just update it right away when you want to, or pay a company a few $100s to put a new sentence on a page, and it's just like you can just do it yourself.
You can do it yourself. Yeah, I use
Right.
WordPress for my films, and then for my handbags, I had to use something. But I absolutely love WordPress. It's great.
What do you use for e-commerce?
Infusionsoft is part of my email marketing software. It was actually the software that Zappos.com used to really move their site. And it's behavior-based software, which is very unique. For instance, like if you click on a certain link in an email, you like the purple drum versus the orange drum, and you click on that, it will bump you to a totally different email list, and it can even text my mom to give you a call about the purple drums for sale. So it's really high tech.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's craziness.
I agree with what if you're somewhat computer phobic, especially trying to do something online and like building that, check and see if the local community colleges in their continuing ed or even on the credit side, if they actually offer courses to help, because a lot of the community colleges in your area may have either the continuing ed side does a lot with entrepreneurship, and they sometimes will have classes that you can take. It's maybe 4 or 5 sessions that you go, and they'll have you teach you how to build websites and stuff like that and work with these kind of programs. The other thing, just quickly, another great networking area to help do this also is like conferences like this. The major one for gaming, which looks for artists, musicians, dancers for to doing motion capture, animation. They look for, of course, musicians, writers, the whole, you name it. Is a game developers conference in San Francisco for a week is fabulous. But conferences are good, and also independent, in particular in gaming, as the independent gaming community. Ironically enough, in DuPage County here, we have a very strong independent game developers. They're looking for artists, musicians, programmers. Usually, the two biggest in gaming is artists and programmers, and then the writers, and then of course musicians, because you dull and boring games without music. So that's another avenue to find things.
I was gonna ask, so if you're just starting out, would you wanna get a site up to have something up, or would you wanna wait till you can really put all your chips in it, I guess?
You want the best you can do on the website. So if
when
you're
you
not
put something
happy
up,
with,
they have
if you
contact, and then it's kinda half-assed.
if you have your own website up, you want the very best you can put up there. You don't want to mess with something that you're not really happy with, and you don't want a bad website. So put the best you have up there.
Or do like a temporary, like a bio, like,
Yeah.
something that, like
But-
something that's about you. Don't put your work
Don't
up that's not ready, but if you want to feel like you have a presence, when I was doing my movie, when I did like a simple word, before we had gotten everything together, it was a simple, clean explanation of what the film was going to be about with a little kind of clip and a bio on me and who was involved. And I kept it like that until we absolutely had the best trailer done, the best, of everything before I put my work out there. If you just want to seem serious, like, okay, well, I do have this going on, but again, clean, very identifiable, this is what I'm looking at. I got more compliments on my movie website, was just WordPress and very clean. Some people were like, oh my God, your site. It was just because it was really clean and they understood it, as opposed to some of the other sites I designed over the years to try to, that I was trying to be, who is Kara, like with my site. No one cares. They want to, they want to know what everything is about, so.
On that note, I have a website. I do artwork, I do visual art, and all kinds of it. And I'm not sure I'm happy with my website because it just seems too much. Because I've got one page for my charcoal portraits, one page for, my graphic design, one page for the... With all your different revenue streams, do you tie all your stuff together in one site? Do you keep it all separate?
I separate it now.
I separated too.
Yeah, I used to have it on one, and now you can link all. They go back, and my husband had suggested this, is that I have like a master site that's Kurcz.com now,
Right.
but I have separate pages for everything else with film, and it's clean for the audience that I'm trying to reach out to.
Make sure that your websites are always your name.com. Your full name.com is the most professional. I have an association, I have a company called Mulfield Associates, but if I put that up, they don't know Sally Field Mullan. Most people will know you by your name, so always use your full name as your .com. It's the most professional.
someone's already taken your name, what's the next best thing? I mean, do you want to put
You
a
use
G
your
in front
middle
of it?
name. Use your full name.
Middle
Full-
name too? That's a
middle
lot.
Or
name.
you can just do,
Yeah.
if you can do like, I mean, this is just because I know Chelsea Handler, when she started out, I've known her for many years, her name was taken, so she did Chelsea_Handler, and when she got big enough to say, hey, baby, I'm going to buy my name back, she did. But for a long time, her website was Chelsea_Handler, clean.
Middle
It's clean.
initial.
Yeah, middle initial. As long as keep it clean, again, because if it's like, if someone's sitting there and going, anything that you can do, to keep it as clean as possible. Or like my nickname's KK, so if I couldn't have gotten, Kurcz.com, I probably would have done something where people would remember that, because they meet me as KK, until Kim Kardashian started messing that all up.
No, it's really considered professional in most businesses to use your full name. And you spell, even if you go by Charlie, spell out Charles, and hopefully you
But
don't
I use my nickname.
Yeah.
I use Mike Veny.
Yeah.
I don't use Michael Veny.
Yeah, I use KK.
Nobody calls me.
is
Yeah.
what you go by. But if that's taken, then you try.
Sure.
But you still use your name. You do not, because no one knows your business name, especially if you're starting out. They start knowing you by your name, hopefully through.
Unless you're like a brand, like if you're a fashion designer, and even most of the big fashion designers, it was Vera Wang. So that's a big mistake too, because I think when we first started with Solas, you're nervous when you first start out to put your name out there, because you're kind of like, it's a weird thing, because you're like, am I boasting? Am I saying that, I'm this big designer and I'm just starting? And so I hid behind Solas Fashion, but every time I was on the news or I was on it was always Kurcz. So it should have, eventually we kind of caught on. We're like, I should have had my name attached early on. So don't be afraid to have your name out there with whatever artwork you're doing, because 10 years from now, hopefully, you're a household name. So you got to own it early on.
When registering that domain, do you have recommendations for where to go and like length of time that? Is it a yearly process?
There's so many different.
So many. I
Do you
mean,
use GoDaddy?
I don't
GoDaddy?
use GoDaddy. I
GoDaddy?
use Bluehost, because with Bluehost I can host unlimited WordPress.
Isn't green? There's green too, right?
Green tea.
No, green. There's another one that you can use unlimited. It's got green.
Yeah, I can't think of
green.
it offhand either.
Yeah. What is it?
Super green.
No, there's green. In the back row there, Mr. Brian Lee. What's the other
What do you
side?
do?
Huh?
Green
Geeks.
blue-
They
Green
I use
Geeks.
Bluehost.
Green Geeks is really good.
Like wind powered and stuff like that.
Yeah, Green Geeks is good too.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can, guess what? Google search free
Yeah,
hosting
yeah.
sites. Hey, when in doubt, Google!
Yeah.
And
And
I always when I don't know, don't you register a bunch?
I register a lot.
I register
got
a
a lot
lot.
of domains that I
Yeah.
don't use.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just because it's good, and a lot of entrepreneurs do that, and a lot of artists do that, because maybe you're gonna have an idea 5 years from now, and it's so cheap nowadays to do it, and it's so much smarter, because looking back, you're like, why didn't I I wasn't ready for my site yet, but why didn't I grab that? So and you can always release them after. I usually do, if it's an idea, I'll only do it for a year and figure out at the end of the year if I want to keep those domains. But some that's your name or maybe a product or whatever you might be going with, I do the 3 years, because it's going to take you a while to launch anyway. So you don't want to have something happen where somebody swoops up and takes it behind you.
Yeah, and I own 2 domains that are like the name to like a movement. I own supportmusiceducation.com, so for that's a whole area, and I also own videomusiclessons.com. Just because no one had it. I'm not doing anything with it. Someone might say, hey, I want to buy that one day. I don't know. That'd be a wonderful thing to sell.
There's a lot of people who do that,
Yeah.
though. They buy up domain names and then they end up, a lot of people in LA do that.
Squatting, right? Domain squatting.
Domain
There
squatting.
was there was actually some suits about that too, so be careful.
Yeah.
You don't want to just grab names that, particularly for major corporations.
Yeah, don't do
Believe
that.
me, the
Don't
Fortune
get
500 will
Walmart.com.
sue you in a shot if you try to do that. In fact, one of the major, it was obvious that one person was trying to buy up all these domain names of all these major corporations, and they just nailed them. So, yeah.
And going back to what you were talking about earlier, it just popped into my brain. Also studying your other people who have your genre of website. Like, I did that. Like for my movie, I was like, what do I do? And so I went and I looked at Michael Moore. And I looked at his website, and I looked at what he did every time he launched a film and how he did his website. And it was like, he had his main Michael Moore, but for every movie, it had a separate, so when people saw a trailer for the movie, they knew to go to that movie. But if they wanted to find out about Michael Moore, he still had that. So whatever genre you're in, I mean, you just got to study your competition. That's the best way to figure it all out. I mean, I did that every time, even when I'm pitching a TV show, I go and look at who my competition is first, so I know my competition. It's the same thing with building your website. It's just know what's out there, and you know what? There's no such thing as an original idea. It's just someone who does it better. So take people's ideas and improve on them. I mean, that's the best way to, I think, do it. And that's
I can't express how much in the gaming world, obviously, there's one successful game, and then there's about 100 more coming out very similar. So you need to, what is unique about what makes your game, what makes your art unique, special, or what music special. So you're trying to differentiate yourself. And one of the things thank you, I need help every once in a while. But one of the things is a concept that's just know thy enemy, but it technically not your enemy, but it's your competition. It's just you need to know what else is out there in your field.
How many people are going to be actually like their goal is to ship a product, or what they're selling is actually going to be something physical that they would have to ship to another state or? Okay. So there's a lot of things you can do that you don't think about when you first start. One of the big deal is strike up a deal with like UPS or FedEx early on. Let them, even if you're only selling one a month, one every 6 months, you know, your goal is to put out to the universe that you're going to grow. And if you want to show that you're going to grow, act like you're prepared for growth, because that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make when they start out, is that they don't envision their business growing, and therefore it stays kind of stagnant. We cut a deal early on with FedEx. And I remember when my husband was meeting with them, and we weren't even selling that much at the time. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you know, because I was all nervous. He was so right. It literally, long term, the amount of money we had to pay on shipping comparison, we were able to put that back into the company because we had such a great deal. And as we grew, because we had a relationship with them right away, we were getting deals that major companies would get. Because as they saw my business grow, when it went from only shipping 5 to a month, then to 10 to a month, then to 15 to 20 to 100, that, even though I wasn't selling 1,000 yet a month, they saw growth in my company and they took me seriously. And they would send their rep out, and we built a relationship early on, and it really helped us with shipping, as well as kind of I don't know if you guys have dealt with this yet, with taxes and working with different states. Mm-hmm. If you're selling online and you don't have a presence, let's say in an art gallery in another state or a store, you're okay. You know, you can your sales tax rules have to do with where you're at. But if I'm a handbag designer and I have a boutique in Tennessee that's selling my bags, and I sell to Tennessee online, it changes the game because now I've got a presence in that state, so I have to pay attention to, you know, the tax, you know, making sure that tax was paid for that state as well. So it's just little things like that you don't think about at first that you kind of are part of your growth process that will affect what your cost is overall, you know, what your price point is going to be. So when you're dealing with any kind of, you know, movement of product, because of course you want to have a presence in every state, you know, that's your goal besides your online, but, you know, just to kind of make sure you know the laws of what you're dealing with and what state you're dealing with and all that kind of stuff.
She brings up a point that I really like, and that is that if you do have a product or really anything, you really need to have, and you want a serious business, you really need to have a business plan that looks to 3 to 5 years out. Particularly for a product, you need to know how you're like you said, the distribution of it. How are you distributing it, and what is the difference between online versus brick and mortar store distribution? Because if you have a great product and you cannot get it to the consumer, then your product will die, because you need to get it out there.
Supply and demand as a whole. I mean, you don't even know. You would be shocked how many people fail because of their demand was too high, and they couldn't ship it.
They
couldn't prepare for it. I mean, so many of people who've been on Oprah, their companies have gone under afterwards because they weren't prepared. You know, and that's just being malleable and knowing, you know, how you shift and change as your company grows. I mean, you can make a 15-year plan, but it's more important to know that you're checking in every month and looking at, you know, what's working, what's not, and how to grow and make sure you're prepared for it.
You mentioned kind of checking with FedEx beforehand and pre-negotiating. Could you do any of that with banks or anything, like say, get it kind of prepared, like if we hit this growth mark?
Back in the day, you could. I did. We got a, we were able to, we built a relationship with our bank and we got a small business loan, but I mean, things have kind of changed. Now there's a lot of grants and stuff that, that is a better avenue to go, but it's always good to meet with anybody in your business community, like your local bank, who you're going to be dealing with, and let them know, hey, get a meeting with the manager, say, I'm starting a business, this is what I want to do, tell me what you would suggest, what our goals could be. Anytime you're taking yourself seriously, the rest of the world's going to take you seriously. I'm a firm believer in that. And so that's, it's always a good idea. It's changed a lot with working with banks, obviously, but.
So I have a question with my somewhat of a business type deal thing that I started is a sports journalist website for me and another student. And obviously it's free for right now because you can't grow as a writing market without trying to get attention first. How would you go about switching that to trying to make some kind of income from it as I start to grow? Because right now it's really small and I'm just starting to get the word out, but and we don't do much with it because none of us are receiving money from it. It's just kind of like a thing to do, and we have to pay for college. So then it's like, what do we do when we want to start to switch it to making money back?
Well, he's the Twitter master about that kind of stuff. Just real quick, I think you have to make a decision. Are you going to have advertisers bringing in your revenue? Like, are you going to be a site like Paris Hilton where he was always free as a blogger and he knew that he wanted to get ads? Or is your goal to have subscribers? Because the easy way to make easy money is that you get somebody to sign up for $5 a month, and you're forgetting about it, and they're forgetting about it, and you're making money that way. So I think you kind of have to figure out which way you want to go, and once you know which way you want to go, there's a million ways to build that brand. It's like Mr. Twitter over here.
Mr. Twitter.
No, you're great at it.
Mr. Twitter.
You are Mr. Twitter. Yeah.
No one's ever called me that. Thank you. The other thing you can do, I always recommend to people, is affiliate marketing, and this is how a lot of my sites make money. I think I might have mentioned it in another presentation. It's kind of nice at the beginning of the month. Sometimes I have an extra few hundred, extra $1,000 PayPal sending me, and I'm like, what is this? It always comes at a time when I'm like, I really need that money too. But it comes from my site, fastdrumskills.com, where I have these links to drumming products that I've reviewed. And I've done really thorough reviews on them, and people just go there. And sometimes they'll email me and say, Mike, can you elaborate more on this? But they just click on the link. It's a $100 product. I get $50 from it. I don't ever have to ship anything. It's a great way to do it. If you go on most sites, even like Walmart, you can just look up their affiliate program. Sign up.
Amazon has a good one.
Amazon has a good one, and the beautiful thing, it's
Yeah,
all
we do Amazon.
it's a great test because if you start getting data that, wow, I'm making a lot of sales, you can possibly go to the company directly and negotiate. Say, look, I'm already doing this and making you a lot of sales. Can we up this to an advertising relationship where you're paying this amount for this and we up it to this? But that's a great practice, and the basic thing that I always say is that people have to know you, like you, and trust you. And online, you have to just write really good content that people want to look at. Another thing we didn't bring up is when you're writing online, especially with a bunch of people who are probably really good writers in this room, you actually have to write to a 5th grade reading level.
Yeah. Yes.
You got to dumb it down.
Yeah.
And people get very mad, especially if they've spent many years in college and doing proper writing and stuff. The reason being, we have very short attention spans online. And the other thing that captures people is headlines. When you have an article or something, a good headline. So a great book to get is Advertising Headlines That Make You Rich. This book has some of the best headlines ever that you can use to just create your own. 7 Secrets to Blank. We've all seen that article. That's how people will start to click on things that you do.
Did you say the name of the book was again?
Oh, Advertising Headlines That Make You Rich.
And when I started out in television and was writing, I went and turned in my first, story that I wrote, and the executive, the guys in charge of writing, supervising producer, said, "This is one of the most well-written things I've ever seen." And I said, "Thank you so much." And he said, "Now I need you to tear that up and learn how to write for TV." Because it's true, people, and I was like, oh, but it's true because it's exactly what Mike is saying. You gotta you might be so eloquent and you want to be funny, and you can be all those things, but you got to do it at a 5th grade reading level.
Yeah.
So it's very simple for them.
I would say it's not so much, they say 5th grade, but it's being succinct about things. You just cannot drone on about things. You have to be, and people like, again, the attention span, bullet point items and
Bullet points, yes.
bullet points are better than, heavy paragraphs and stuff like that, but be more succinct. Get the word that. People overuse the word that in their compositions in their writing all the time. So be succinct in your writing.
And go back and, like I said before, go back and read other people, especially for you. Read every blog that has to do with what you're trying to do. And that, and see what works. And reviews. Like, when I was starting my blog, I read blogs that were just like my blogs, and then figured out how to do my voice, but then I would, be what people are used to. Because you're trying to get that other sports writer's audience. So you can be different, but you can't come at it and not be talking to that audience. They're not going to listen in whatever genre you're doing. There's your audience is used to reading certain things. So make sure you study and do your homework of what, wherever you're trying to break into. I think that's a huge, huge part of it. Hi.
I know that in the future I will have some kind of product that I want to bring to people in my audience, but I find myself with the struggle of, do I set up my online store like with Big Cartel or with Etsy first, or do I try to figure out my product? I'm not sure when to do one or the other, but I feel like the way you present your thing that you do is just as important as what it is that you make, but it's like I'm struggling with which one do I start first, which platform do I trust first,
I think Etsy's great if you're just starting out. I mean, if you don't know that you're going to be XYZ company, I love Etsy. I mean, Etsy, I wish it was around when I started, years ago, because I would have been a testing ground for me, and I would have been able to make my mistakes on a smaller scale instead of a bigger scale. I think Etsy is wonderful when you're trying to figure stuff out, especially it's and you get so much feedback, and then someone can email you sidewise and go, and they might say to you, I wish it was like this. Would you make me especially like that? And you're getting all this feedback about your product or your art that you wouldn't get if you were competing in kind of a bigger format where you're just your site. It feels like you're one-on-one with the people too. You're one-on-one with your customer, whereas on Amazon, which we made a lot of money on Amazon years ago because the competition wasn't as big as it is now. And we're still on Amazon, and we still we'll get money from them, but at Amazon, you're not one-on-one with your customer as much, whereas I feel like Etsy, you really can talk to your customer and say, what would you like about that? What would you like me to do differently? Can you get more feedback? So I think it's a great place to start.
Part question. One is on Etsy, because I've been on Etsy and my stuff, where I've tried a couple craft shows before, and people have said, no, you need to be in a jury art show. So to my thinking, Etsy may not work for me. And the other question I have is on search engine optimization. I read something saying that keywords, meta tags aren't as necessary anymore. Do any of you know anything about
Yes.
that?
I just recommended a search engine optimization tool to her just now. I wrote her a little note. The one I use is Scribe SEO. It's constantly changing with search engines, and the reasons are people are just always spamming the search engines. Way back when. And it all started with porn, by the way, online. Porn, it was actually the beginning of online marketing. I'm just putting it out there. It really was. They would put all these crazy keywords on a page, like hundreds of keywords, and get their stuff to the top. And then everyone else was like, oh, that's what they're doing. And real businesses started getting into that too. And Google is just trying to make it, real, the authentic results, people who are doing real stuff. So the key, everyone says at the end of the day, yes, keywords are important. Their importance is debated all the time, but good content that's original. So if you write something that's really good and helpful, somehow Google has this magical way of picking it up and making it rise in the search engine. If you copy someone else's thing, not so.
And then how about Etsy? Do you think, does that fall into the craft area more?
No, there's all different. I think it's how you market in what you write, because Etsy is the same thing where people are going on there and they're looking for a specific thing. So if for some reason your write-up about your product is falling under a category where someone who's looking for more crafty, something crafty, that's all they're going to see. But I just did a whole wedding renewal where I was looking from everything from crafty to really fancy florist designers. you know what I mean, that what I wanted and had a look. And it was, you know, they were smart about how they marketed their self, that when I typed in, you know, I worked with these people and we did woodwork and a whole bunch of stuff. So, but, you know, it doesn't have to be. That's what I like about Etsy. I think there's all different levels. It's really how you're going to place your product on there and that people are looking for. Like for me, I mean, you're putting your artwork on there, correct? Like if I was redesigning a house, right? And I wanted to find unique items for, you know, artwork, and that was on Etsy, I would go to Etsy and I would look for, because I know it's going to be a more local artist, and just make sure that that's the kind of person that, you know, when you're making sure that when person does the search engine, that's what they're looking for. You know, I would say like interior design and, you know, things that like that for the home. And there are other sites, and I just know now because I'm obsessed with trying to do this like really unique headboard thing. There are other sites that are just like interior design artists, created by, I don't know if you ever worked with like Created by You, and all these other kind of sites that are specifically for the home. And there's tons of wonderful artists on it that are working with everything from metal to paintings to, you know, for things like that. And that's another way to put your stuff out there to make sure you got the right audience that's going to spend the money that they, you know, obviously I'm assuming your artwork's, you know, higher end, you know, compared to some of that stuff on there. But that person going to that site is going to know that that's what they're going to spend. More questions? Yes.
I was wondering just about Pinterest, just because
Oh, yeah.
everyone I know is on Pinterest, and my best friend is one
Pinterest.
Puts her, you know, put her stuff on. Isn't that a huge link too, to get your website out there and get people to
Ideas, yeah. If you've got a trend going on, obviously it's not necessarily for you, but let's say if people are following your Pinterest thoughts, and you're like a home, I'm going to go back to interior design just because we're talking about it, but if you're an interior designer or an artist, and you are you're working with Pinterest about your thoughts about, you know, a certain type of, you know, theme or story, and people are following you as far as like what your ideas are, then they're going to be interested in what your website is, and your website is up on your little Pinterest, you know, thing. So it is another way to get a conversation going with your audience about who you are. You know, especially for, you know, if you're a handbag designer or if you're making movies and you're painting up different thoughts about other people's, you know, ideas, it's a good way to get everyone kind of knowing about who you are as a person, and then kind of attaching to you as an artist or a designer, you know, or whatever you might be doing. I mean, it's nowadays, it's like so much work, right? I mean, like it's so much work but that's just a new way of business.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like people who used to have to go door to door and knock on the doors or send out millions of faxes wondering if anyone was going to look at them. The new way is to do this Pinterest and Facebook and Twitter. You know, I'm trying to be tweetastic. It's hard. I really are. You know, I'm like,
tweetastic.
yeah. I mean, it's really funny watching my executives. The guy who owns my company that I just did a big show with. We were teaching him. He was like, you have to teach. He does. I don't know if anyone knows a show called Buck Wild on MTV. Our company does that. It's the #1 show on MTV right now. And we had to teach our executive, like the guy who owns the company, was like, I have to learn how to tweet. You know, because that's the way that people know about your show, even. You know, and so the whole world's kind of learning about this still. And I'm sure that 5 years from now there's going to be something else, but you know, it's all tweeting.
Yes.
So speaking of that, how much time, like a week, do you spend maybe like on Twitter, Facebook, or on your you know, redesigning or connecting from your website? I mean, is that your full-time 40 hours, 50 hours a week thing, or? You know, or maybe put it in a month, whatever way is.
I think if you want to be successful, it's just like the salesman, right?
Yeah, I think it's a consistency thing. I try to block out a half an hour a day on social media consistently. And I try to have a little disciplined routine, no different than a workout routine, with certain things that I do. So, for instance, I go on Twitter, I check my tweets, who's mentioned me. Maybe Kara said, Mike, it was nice hanging with you and chatting with you in the panel. I'll respond back to her. I use a program called Hootsuite, though, that when I reply back to her, it will auto-schedule that message to go at the best time that she will likely look at it and possibly respond. So, Hootsuite. Hoot.
Like a owl. It's got a little owl.
sweet like a candy, or sweet like the hotel?
It's
Like
like a
sweet like a
hotel.
hotel, yeah. Like the Owl Hotel, Hootsuite. So I use that, and that allows me to schedule Facebook updates, social media updates. So people think they're coming up to me at the conference, and they're like, "You're tweeting all the time, you know?" And I just saw you. It's like, no, that was scheduled 2 weeks ago.
It's smart.
It's smart. So a lot of times I even upload my tweets for the month and my Facebook updates through an Excel file and it schedules them for 3 months from now.
And I took a free class on Hootsuite because I just couldn't figure it. I'm not smart like Mike, and I couldn't figure it out. I mean, there's so much stuff out there to learn about this that you can, even online like demos that you can kind of like Google and research, like how for building my business, how do I work with Twitter, and there's like demos online that'll teach you like the best ways to use Hootsuite and all that kind of stuff. But my girlfriend knew of a free class with one of the business organizations that we were involved in, and to learn about how to tweet better and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of resources, to become tweet-tastic.
Some of the,
It's a great term.
I love that. Again, community colleges are starting to do more with social media so that people know how to work with it. There are, like there's independent game associations that will help you and take whatever in your field, check and see if there's some independent associations that will also have like little workshops on how to do things.
And it's just the new way of doing business. I mean, back in the day, like I go back to, people would go fly in planes and meet with a customer, take them to dinner, hope that they would buy their product, and sometimes they wouldn't. And they would spend, 2 days on something. It's the same thing. You have to kind of look at all these avenues as you're getting on a plane, you're knocking on the door, and you have to treat it like a salesperson would, years ago when they would go meet with a customer. I think that's a big deal. And my big question, I'm going to ask Mike, actually. And maybe you guys have heard this, some people say with Twitter, it's more important to have, you're not following anybody and they're following you. But how do you get people to follow you if you're not following people?
I've heard about this, and I look at that as really more of a macho thing at the end of the day. This is how many friends I got. Whatever. It's like, who cares? I look for real relationships, and I had to actually remind myself that because I was, I got up to like 22,000 followers, and I'm like, I'm doing better. I got to get to 100. And it's like, no, I could probably do better with even less as long as I interacted with them more. So what I'm trying to do is certain friends that I have, sorry, I'm losing my voice after the whole conference here. What I'm trying to do is, like, let's say Kara's on a certain list, which she actually is on a certain list.
Is it a good list?
It's a good list.
Okay.
You're on a good list. She's actually on the list. It's actually the self-employment in the arts list for all the different people that were here. I just want to keep in touch with them, and I can see what they're doing. And if she tweets about something, I can reply to it. And that's important because that's going to allow me to stay in touch with her. So she might forget about me. She might be doing her projects, but I can tweet her and say, hey, what's up? Just want to say hi. Oh, it's Mike. That's how I will stay fresh in her mind, hopefully. Does that answer your question a little bit? Yes.
Let's say, like you were saying yesterday, Cara, you're trying to do YouTubes from time to time.
Yeah.
So let's say you have what you're hoping for and it blows up, and it really rises above everything. I'm curious what the group would think are the top things to do in that instance to monetize that audience.
PR.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, in practical terms, all of a sudden you've got this short window of 10 days or whatever it is, where everybody's coming to you and seeing it. What are the things you do? How do you get yourself organized in advance so you could actually take advantage of your 15 minutes to
have a business plan?
Right, and PR, and I go back, it's my PR I did on my own, so when you get 50,000 hits, you're gonna email Jay Leno, I'm not kidding, like, making sure that you know ahead of time who you would contact when you reach that. I pitched myself in my product. Once I knew that I got a hit somewhere, I would reach out myself to E-News. I'd reach out myself to these organizations, and I had a thing already set that I had made, kind of like my own little like trailer, and I knew once it was go time to send it out, and I would send it out to 20, and I would get 5, people that grab on it, and then knowing that you're gonna have something on your site that people can then either buy your DVD or learn more about who you are. Because even if you're trying to make your name out there, that's how you get followers and things like that. But your business plan has to do with marketing. I mean, it's all about marketing. So once you get on YouTube and you get the hits, you got to maximize how you're going to do it, and don't be afraid to reach out in your own PR. I mean, your local news, all those places are what you got to maximize once you've gotten yourself high up on YouTube.
What else would you? I hear you saying maybe have your trailer ready, make your list in advance of who the key contacts would be.
Yeah.
What else would you do? What else would you do to take advantage of it?
I just say with the whole planning thing, and this goes with what she's saying, is having the infrastructure in place to be able to handle it. And if you're writing a good business plan, if you're thorough in your planning, you won't be overwhelmed when something like that happens.
Right, but I'm curious, what would that look like to you? What would some of the elements of that?
I think it varies, for me in particular, just, your email list, your email list form, sign up for my newsletter, ready to go. Your
newsletter.
contact me, ready to go. My publicist with, certain press releases, ready to go. The point is just having it ready to go just in case. It might not happen, you might use it for something else, but that's the whole point about, thorough planning with a business plan. You think through that stuff.
And what your goal is. Like for me with my YouTube, it's like Motivate Media is my production company, and we want to start doing more scripted stuff. So we know if we get a huge YouTube hit, the minute that happens, everyone's going to see at the end, and we're also raising cancer awareness. So everyone's going to see at the end of that thing, they're going to see my site, they're going to see Motivate Media, they're like, oh, what's up with them next, And we're going to get our word out there, and then I'm going to be able to, that for me, it's branding. So if it's a product that you are trying to, do a little YouTube video and that's what you're trying to push, then your product would be the thing they go to. So it's just kind of knowing what your goal is to get the word out there, because your first big hit is only a one-hit wonder because you don't have your second one ready to go. So whatever you're doing, assume it's going to be a huge hit and make sure you have the next thing lined up, because the next thing is where you're going to actually monetize and kind of build off of, what's going to happen.
Isn't like with YouTube, it's important if you are really going after making viral videos and stuff to be like a YouTube partner and all that stuff. I don't know how important that is, because I hear these people talk about it like that's how you monetize it from ads, and you fully have to get so many views too. But I think
You can.
Yeah.
I don't think it's essential, but you can. That's what.
I mean, most of the viral videos you probably watch right now aren't partners yet, and there, there's a bunch of people out there that started out on their own, and now they've partnered with production companies, or they've partnered with, YouTube or major companies, but they weren't initially. They just made their money after they hit it. There's plenty of success stories out of their bedroom.
Visual artist, and I put my stuff out on the internet, but how do I protect it?
That's a good question.
Talk to Elizabeth Russell.
Oh yeah.
I've talked to her already.
But that's such a hard dance, isn't it? Because you want to have it out there, and and you're afraid of, different things. But at the same sense, someone once told me, that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So if you've got something that people are trending and trying to copy, even with my handbags, that was my biggest concern. I spent all this money to make sure that I was patented, and that because I don't know if you guys know, but my handbags light up inside. So I did the light, technology. Yeah, I'm the light up handbag chick. So if you Google light up handbag, I'll be the first thing that comes up. But we spent thousands and thousands of dollars protecting our product because I was so worried about it. But the truth is, it's so true, the minute someone starts knocking you off, then you really hit it. You know what I mean? Because people are looking at your stuff. So it's really a fine line. Now, if you're talking about someone downloading, there are ways to lock your site that they're not stealing images, which is important. And you should absolutely lock your site, especially if you're talking about someone downloading something. But as far as knocking off your idea, well, that means that they've been looking at you. And that means that somebody important's been looking at you. So, there's with the way the world is, I just wouldn't spend tons of money until it's necessary, because it's not as, if that doesn't kind of make, what I mean?
Yeah.
On images that you put up there, you can put in essentially what is called a watermark on there that says sample or copyright. So right on your image, you can actually at the bottom put a copyright with your name on it in a year.
Yeah, we
So when
watermark our
people
videos.
download it, it already has the copyright on it, which you want to do. I tell my students, you write it down on the paper and you think it's an original thing, you put your name on it with a little C and copyright it with your name in a year. That's your proof. Now, if you actually took it from somebody else, they'll sue you, hopefully, but but that's what you do, is you put copyright on everything, particularly the images that you. So when you do that, you can, through Photoshop, and there's all different ways that, even in Word, you can put embed the image of either sample or copyright on your images that you put up there.
That's all the time that we've got for today.